Good afternoon and welcome to the Daytona International Speedway, where we are moments away from the start of the second annual virtual 24-hour race. It's been a grueling week for the teams and drivers, and it's only going to get harder from here. Twice around the clock to decide who will win the virtual 24-hour for 2021. The venue for this event, as we know, is the stunning World Centre of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway, famous of course for its stock car racing on the oval as well as its pedigree in sports car racing, with some of the world's most famous names making their mark on the road course. For someone in just over a day's time, they'll be joining the list of those who have conquered this famous venue. The weather looks set to be excellent all weekend, with blue skies greeting us today. Sunset around 5:30 and sunrise just before 8 a.m. means much of this race will be in darkness, which poses yet another challenge for the competitors. However, with 43 fantastic entries, it's sure to be a wonderful battle between man, machine and the inevitable passing of time to see who comes out on top. The circuit makes full use of the speedway banking, reaching speeds in excess of 200 miles per hour in the prototypes, in stark contrast to the tight infield section of the road course. Two horseshoe hairpins joined together by fast kinks before heading back onto the speedway, with the bus stop providing the final technical challenge for the drivers. Overtaking will be plentiful as cars slipstream along the high banks, braking deep into the slower corners to gain track position. So without further ado, let's have a look through the grid for the start of today's race. On pole position, it's the number 37 Ingram Jaguar Racing P-Type SVR with James Vasquez at the wheel for the start of the race. He took pole position and he is going to lead them away. Jean Matson is in second place in the number 1 Taro V8 prototype of Campos Motorsport, while behind in third place is the number 4 Nackley Nissan of Hugh Dwyer. In fourth position, the number 21 DHL Porsche Team Malachor car of Enrique Ruiz. Fifth is James Harding in the number 5 Nackley Nissan. Sixth is the number 57 Grey Cadillac Autosport car of Sean Brunner, while seventh is the number 22 of Carl Beckenbauer. In 8th place is the number 27 Maserati with Yuki Takamura at the wheel, while 9th is the 13 of Brock Kidd. In 10th place is the first of our prototype AM runners, the number 23 Medexic Racing Porsche with Stuart Harrison starting. The number 14 Downton with Nathaniel Powers at the wheel is in 11th, while 12th place alongside is the number 9 Peugeot of Timo Kinnaman. 13th and 14th, number 12 and number 11 Franklin Hondas respectively, with Danilo Farini and Jamie Davis starting, while in 15th and 16th it's the two privateer Downtons, 42 and 44, James Thompson and Thierry Zylander. It's an all prototype AM Row 9, 17th and 18th is the number 17 and number 81 cars with Nikolaj Christodoulou and Keith Murphy. The 28 Maserati with Felix Ferreira at the wheel will start in 19th, while in 20th is the number 82 Mercedes of Stephen Kasami. Teammate in the number 88, Rodolfo de la Fuente, will start 21st, while 22nd is Jules Barclay in the number 10 Peugeot. 23rd is the number 69, the 4th placed car in prototype and with Brian Zrigovic at the wheel for Westwood. 24th is the autonomous innovative class car of Quantum Industries Motorsport with Driverbot ostensibly at the wheel in the Honda HPD 05 driverless. While 25th and the last of our prototype runners is John Doe in the number 49 High Wind Endurance Racing Ligier Alfa Romeo. Leading away the GT runners, the GT Le Mans pole sitter, 26th overall, is Will Hoskins in the number 19 JFPT Franklin Honda entry, the Honda NSX. Alongside will be Spencer James in the number 7 McLaren. Teammate in the number 24, getting a reprieve to even make the start of this race, is Maximilian Thunstrom, while 4th place overall in GT and 29th overall in the race, but pole sitter in GT Daytona, it's Lewis Ellington in the number 99 Ferrari. The number 18 Honda will be alongside Felipe Cesar, second in class, while behind 31st and 32nd it's two Porsches, the number 91 GT Le Mans entry with Sebastian Bergqvist starting, while in 32nd it is the number 93 with Didier Arnaud for Lapierre Formule. 33rd and 34th are the 38 Jaguar of Fleur Laura Delacour and the 92 Porsche with Alexei Novosinski at the wheel. 35th, number 80 car, Ethan Wright starting the Mercedes AMG Team Cately car. 36th, the 95 car, Jonas Phipps in the AM class, the GT Daytona Jaguar, while 37th, Rodrigo Sanchez in the Downton Motorsport Run entry, the McLaren 720S in the number 94 car. 38th is Sebastian Callahan in the Dodge Viper, the number 47 entry in the colours of Dodge, while in 39th is the number 71 car, Alexander McLaughlin in the GT Le Mans High Wind Ferrari. 40th is the number 41 McLaren Phoenix Motorsport run entry with Jean-Claude Chazelat at the wheel. 41st is the number 43 Richard Petty inspired car with Luca Romero starting. 42nd, Reese Catley in the Catley Racing entry, the number 8 Mercedes. While rounding out the grid will be Frank Yang starting the number 58 Cadillac ATS VR for Cadillac Grey Autosport. So there we have it. You now know the runners and riders for the 2021 virtual 24-hour race here at the Daytona International Speedway. The cars are out on their formation lap, so now all that is left to do is for us to join the live images as the cars make the way to the start line. And as they come to the line, we're about to start the second annual virtual 24-hour race. James Vazquez leads us across the line, and we are racing here at Daytona. Vazquez with the whole shot going into turn one with Jean Matson behind and Enrique Ruiz in third position with Hugh Dwyer fourth for Sapporo Nackley Nissan Racing as the field now streams into the International Horseshoe for the first time here at Daytona. Vazquez still in the lead, but behind it's Jean Matson and Enrique Ruiz side by side. The Porsche getting a good run out of the corner and indeed will sweep through as they go through the left-hand kick. Ruiz up into second position here on lap one. Further behind, you can see Sean Bruner with a great start in the Cadillac Grey Autosport car, while Yukumi Takahashi, Carl Beckenbauer, and then Brock Kidd and Nathaniel Powers and the two Downtons are battling hard on the fringes of the top 10. Vazquez now leads the field on to the high banks of Daytona. This is Speedway 1 and 2. Vazquez with half a second margin already over Enrique Ruiz, with John Matson settling into third place. For the first time, we'll see these cars get into the slipstream and see what they can do. And indeed, it's Jean Matson with a monumental run on Ruiz, and he's going to be down the inside as they head into the bus stop. But Enrique Ruiz looks like he's just about going to hold it out. But Jean Matson can't quite manage it there. But you can see for the first time the straight line speed in race trim for the Tauro V8 prototype. Deep into the slipstream there, going around the outside, and will get past Enrique Ruiz, and it looks like he's going to have a brilliant run. He's going to go for the lead on lap one. He's side by side with James Vazquez, and I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to be credited with leading the first lap of the virtual 24 hours. Jean Matson, one of the three drivers last year's champions, leads lap one, but it's not as simple as that. James Vazquez back down the inside, and Hugh Dwyer in the number 4 Nissan is also battling hard with Enrique Ruiz, heading now back into the horseshoe for lap 2 of this race. Vazquez maintains the lead, but behind it looks like it was Matson Ruiz. We've got a number of onboard cameras for you this weekend. Jonas Phipps is one of them here. So looking at the order in the GT classes, Will Hoskins had a great start with Lewis Ellington second overall, but leading the GT Daytona category, while in third place overall but second in GT, Spencer James with Sebastian Bergqvist making up the rest of the order. And now you can see on the screen Will Hoskins in that number 19 Franklin Honda. It's been the fastest car all weekend and during test week. It's going to be a long 24-hour race though to see whether or not all of these cars can go through unscathed. Spencer James second in the category. The Monster Energy Downton McLaren racing team having a slightly difficult time of it during test week, but the pace looks to have improved massively as they enter race week. Now we go back to the front of the field. Jean Matson, second place now, having dispatched Enrique Ruiz, and looks like he's once again going to line up a run for James Vazquez. That Jaguar nicely balanced through the tight and twisty infield section, but the grunt and go Tauro V8 prototype has absolute oodles of power, and it looks like he's going to do it again. He is side by side on the outside as they head towards the tri-oval, and I think he might even be clear now. Not quite, but Jean Matson has led both laps so far, while only leading for about 100 feet of them in total. But it's the fastest lap of the race so far for Jean Matson. James Vazquez, though, has managed to just get past ahead once more as they head through into the infield section for the third time. But right on the bumper there of the Jaguar. Hugh Dwyer looks like now he's comfortably back through in third place, but if Ruiz can get back through with the Porsche that's so good out of the corners on acceleration, it's going to be a fascinating battle. Having a look at the prototype Anfield, it's Stuart Harrison that still leads ahead of Nicholas Christodoulou. Harrison up to 11th overall by the look of it. On board now with Alexander McLaughlin in the Ferrari 488 GTB, run by Highwind Endurance Racing, the pro car of the GT Le Mans entry. Down in 38th at the moment, but this is a very long race. I don't think there's going to be an awful lot to worry about for the guys that are at the back. This is a sort of race you just really want to settle into a rhythm and get things going without having too many issues in the first opening stages. Another one of our onboard cameras, number 8 Cately Racing car, currently with team owner Rhys Cately in the car. An exciting period for the Brit, of course, with the GTV Super Cup going from strength to strength after their first season. On board as well with Tumo Kinnaman and the Peugeot 9V8, a very innovative, one of the hybrid cars on this grid, an absolutely amazing looking machine. But we head back to the front of the field now. It's Jean Matson, still second place, still battling very hard. Hugh Dwyer in third place now seems to have dropped back just a little bit. I think he's about 1.5 seconds behind the Frenchman in the Spanish run entry. And James Vazquez, the Colombian, doing really well. On the screen you can see Danilo Ferrini, 12th position overall, but with the prototype AM leader Stuart Harrison ahead. A great start for the Medexic Racing Porsche team. Further back, Nicholas Christodoulou will be second in that category, while in third place would be the number 69 Westwood Run Peugeot, with Bojan Zrigovic starting for the team. The weather here is absolutely glorious, as you can see. We've got warm temperatures for this time of year. We've started the race with about 22 degrees ambient, which means the track will have plenty of bite, plenty of grip in it for us to have a fascinating race. So at the moment, last in the prototype AM category was John Doe, we saw briefly on the screen there, but they're the only lineup in the entire race to consist solely of amateur drivers, so they are doing a fantastic job here, just making it to the start in such competitive fashion. Lewis Ellington now closing in a little bit, it looks like, on the number on the number 19 GTLM Honda. Further back into the field, the thundering Dodges, Sebastian Callahan, trying to get back past some of the AM cars. We've got Jean-Claude Chazelat taking the start for Royal Phoenix Motorsport in their privateer McLaren, while Luca Romero in the number 43 car. They've had great pace quite often during the weekend, but in qualifying couldn't put it together. But of course, win 39th as well. Frank Yang, we saw there in the Cadillac, they did qualify right towards the back, but they're already starting to make their way forward. Another driver that looks like he's making moves now is Nathaniel Powers, up to 8th position overall from 11th on the grid. So Powers, after a disappointing qualifying session that saw him miss out on the Superpole, he's certainly going back in the right direction now. On board with Spencer James, third place in the GT Le Mans category. Third place overall. No, he's still third place in the GT Le Mans category. Still third in GT Le Mans, but it's Felipe Cesar, the second place runner in GT Daytona, pushing on hard there. Those Hondas in fine battle in the early stages. And now we're also on board with the prototype AM leader, the Medexic Racing number 23 entry, with Stuart Harrison at the wheel, with Clint and Cliff Trevino, the other two drivers of that car. Amateur classes have a fascinating dynamic when the majority of the race will of course be run by the professional drivers in that lineup, but then when the amateur gets in, all bets are off. The lineups will or the order of the race will shuffle significantly. Brilliant view here of Lewis Ellington heading into the kink on the left-hand kink before the second hairpin on the infield section. The drivers here already having to work pretty hard. It's not the coolest of conditions. The two Porsche Team Malishore cars decked out in the DHL colours, representing the history of Penske Racing with the brand in the American Le Mans Series. Bringing that across the virtual 24 hours and flying in formation at the moment, Carl Beckenbauer sweeping around the outside of Enrique Ruiz. The team clearly deciding there that the faster of the two cars should just go. There's no point fighting each other when you have a field of 41 other cars all ready for a battle. And that's exactly what they've done. So now hopefully for the Porsche boys and girls, they can push on and start to close that gap a little bit more to get back to Hugh Dwyer. However, we are also about to start looking at one of the most interesting dynamics of endurance racing, the unique part of this, and that's the traffic management. We're almost 6 laps into this race, and the leaders will very shortly start to just creep towards the rear end of the GT field, and with it being so early in the race, they won't be particularly well ordered. They'll still be fighting each other for position as much as anything. And we see on screen Nathaniel Powers up to 7th position, and in the slipstream of James Harding, trying to pull himself even further up the field. A fantastic first stint already from Nathaniel Powers just in this first 10 minutes. Stuart Harrison just behind, hoping to take advantage of some of that progress as well. That Porsche has been running well all test week, really one of the top runners in the prototype AM category. So we see now Sebastian Bergqvist ahead of Spencer James has just moved into second place overall in GT, which means he can now start chasing down only half a second away from Will Hoskins. Meanwhile, Luca Romero and Frank Yang having an absolutely fantastic battle. You can hear with this underside shot, you can see how the wheels are interacting with the tarmac, and you can hear that V10 engine absolutely purring through this track. Gorgeous sound from the Dodge Viper there. Timo Kinnaman making his way very slowly up the field as well. 15th position with the two Franklin Hondas ahead of JB Davis and Danilo Farini, side by side really, as they're entering into the International Horseshoe. We're on board with Farini now. You can see the OSM car of Thierry Zylander, the number 44 privateer down ahead. So we are starting to see a couple of gaps emerging in the field, possibly between Sean Bruner in 8th and Brock Kidd in 9th for prototype, but really this field is as competitive as ever. And you can see there Felipe Cesar moving ahead of Lewis Ellington. So the two Honda GT cars, first and third overall in GT, and of course leading their respective classes. So it's a really strong start from the pro drivers in the two Honda NSXs. Just taking in some of the ambience here. You can see Daytona Beach right behind on the high banks here. One of the most famous racing venues in the world. They call it the World Center of Racing for a reason. The Daytona International Speedway, of course, built as a result of the popularity of the Daytona Beach race on the beachfront, where they went up and down Atlantic Avenue with a run on the famous sand as well. But the Daytona International Speedway is a magnificent venue and fitting for the host of the second annual virtual 24-hour race. James Vazquez now leads still, with Jean Matson just falling back ever so slightly. It's a gap of about 1.5 seconds, with third place being Carl Beckenbauer, who's now moved ahead of Hugh Dwyer, 0.8 ahead of the Canadian. In 5th place is Nathaniel Powers, with Ruiz up in not really making the progress of Beckenbauer. It hasn't quite got the pace in this early running. In 6th, behind Nathaniel Powers, who is still on a charge. James Harding 7th for the second of the two Nackley Nissans, and we can see on board him looking at Hugh Dwyer there. That's one of the big perils. We're starting to see the traffic coming in. Takamura and Farini battling hard here. Takamura in that wonderful Maserati with the low burbling V8 motor. So here we go, we've got the race leader James Vazquez, and you can see the absolute bedlam around him. He's got no fewer than probably 6 or 7 GT entries, all battling each other, and when they go 2 or 3 wide around the banking, it becomes such a challenge for everybody to get past them. And you can see that 1.5 second lap gap has just reduced down to a third, and if not less, with Jean Matson now only 0.3 of a second away. It's the times like this where you can really take advantage of the traffic and make some significant gains if you're a following car, or if you're really good in traffic as the leader, you can start to pull out a lead and really not look back. Matson dispatching the number 71 car of Alexander McLaughlin, okay there, and a wonderful sight in front as well, as the 3 Jaguars all out on track together. You have the 38 Pro entry or GT Le Mans entry with the F-Type, you have the leading car overall, the number 37 P-Type, and then the amateur class number GT Daytona 95 entry currently with Jonas Phipps at the wheel as well. Timo Kinnaman's made his way up to 15th position overall now, so that will be 14th in class. He's now dispatched Nikolai Christodoulou, who's falling back ever so slightly, I think. So at the moment, Stuart Harrison 10th overall, looking quite nice in prototype AM, but that is really not a representative thing to say after about a quarter of an hour of a 24-hour race. In the traffic, it's Nathaniel Powers and Carl Beckenbauer battling hard. Beckenbauer gets back past Nathaniel Powers after briefly got ahead. And you can see that the number 80 Mercedes there holding his line. That's the key. If you're one of the GT runners and you've got a prototype with you, hold your line, do what you were going to do. they are entitled to the track in exactly the same way as these prototypes are. But also, if you can hold your line, it's a very predictable process. If you're trying to overtake as a prototype, the last thing you want is someone darting to the side to let you through, because you don't really know when or what they're going to do. So some of the drivers, they often say actually that they prefer to lap the faster GT runners, because they're the professional drivers who know what they're doing. They've done this for years, and they just let the cars through as and when they can, rather than some of the amateur drivers. In fact, we saw it there with the onboard. You saw Ben Faz, or you saw Reese Catley, sorry, seeing the Mercedes prototype coming through. Another great shot there of 3 of the 4 team cars, or 3 of the 5 team cars, sorry, for Mercedes AMG this weekend. But you saw Reese Catley see the team car in the mirror and just jink over to the left ever so slightly. On the high banks, generally what you see is the faster car, or the lapped traffic, will sit on the bottom, and the faster car will overtake to the right-hand side, just as a bit of custom. But of course, that's very dependent on both drivers being cooperative. We see Nikolais Christodoulou on the screen now, battling hard with the number 42 Pro entry, Royal Phoenix Motorsport. Of course, Phoenix Motorsport had failed to qualify with the 42 car initially, but with withdrawals from others in the other classes, they got the reprieve, and frankly, it's brilliant to see them here. They are one of the most fan favourite teams on the Virtual 24 grid this year. On board with Sean Matson, that V8 prototype just pulling back a little bit now, but James Vazquez, now that they've got through that traffic for the most part, will have clear track ahead, and the orders of engagement will be restored back to what they were. DriverBot's on the screen now. So DriverBot is a fascinating bit of technology. The Quantum Industries Motorsport team has partnered with Jamie Franklin and his Franklin Motorsport team to produce an autonomous driving car, which has taken the data from the GTV Supercut runners that they ran this year and taught this AI how to be a racing driver. And for such new technology, it is working absolutely brilliant. And there's been a visible step change as well between how well it's worked in the test week where we were seeing, and now that it's in proper racing conditions, you can see just how strong it really is. In GT Daytona, let's have a look. It's Felipe Cesar that leads ahead of Lewis Ellington by half a second, and then about 5 seconds further back from that, Didier Arnaud in the number 93 Lapierre Formule car we saw briefly on the screen, decked out in the colours of the famous Daytona beach sign, a bit of homage to the venue for today's race. We know that it's one of team owner Arthur Lapierre's favourite circuits and favourite events in the world to come and attend, so really nice to see that they've been able to pay tribute here. At the moment, rounding out the field, Jean-Claude Chazelat in the McLaren, 2.3 seconds behind Reese Catley. It's a very difficult task asking an amateur driver to start a 24-hour race. With all the hustle and bustle you see going on, it's very difficult to keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble, and also to keep pace at all. However, any time they lose now, they'll get it back when their pro drivers do get in the car. So it's not all over, certainly, for them. We've got over 23 hours and 40 minutes to go of this race. You see Beckenbauer making his way through the last of the traffic now. So that's Ellington, Cesar and Hoskins once that goes through. But you can see what has happened here. Powers got through, and Beckenbauer got blocked a little bit by some of the traffic. It's not blocking in terms of in a negative sense. It's just what happens at an endurance race. So we have James Vazquez half a second up the road from Jean Matson. Powers now 10 seconds back from the Frenchman in the number 14 Daytona Motorsport MCL 001, built in conjunction with McLaren, the hybrid powered machine. 10 seconds off the lead now, really, because of that traffic. But you know, that's the traffic giveth, traffic taketh away. So we'll see that come back and forth throughout the race. Carl Beckenbauer a further 7 seconds back almost from Powers. So the front has just spread out a little bit, but on screen you can see how close the lead battle is. James Vazquez and Jean Matson separated by barely anything, and you can see the strengths and weaknesses of these cars oppose each other absolutely perfectly. James Vazquez makes up the time in the tight twisty sections, and Jean Matson starts to pull away and pull back in on the high banks of the speedway, and potentially a little bit under braking as well. So it's the sort of car that might not necessarily be the outright fastest, but once we start looking at getting into significant traffic over the course of this 24-hour race, It's the sort of car that's really raceable. You can get past the traffic in nice little bursts. You can get through on the banks where some others might not quite have the top straight line speed to get to that car in time. So it's going to be a fascinating dynamic and battle to see how these cars all compare once we come back to 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Of course, it's worth talking about the schedule for this race. We're going to have an hourly update every 2 hours, and we'll try and show you a few of the highlights, a few of the most important things that happened during the race, as well as giving you a rundown of the top 3 in each class in terms of who's driving, and then we will have the old-fashioned hourly update, and we will bring you those, as I say, about every 2 hours. We might come a little bit earlier if there's something that's significant that happens, or if there's a bit of time, we might go just a little bit after that, just so that we capture what happens during all of the pit stop phase in that 2-hour block. And then we'll join you tomorrow at about 1:30, I reckon, for the live finish, and we'll see the cars over the line, we'll see what happens, and as well as that, we will then also be bringing some point in the new year, probably a full hour-long highlights package. We're aiming for it to be an hour long, where we will bring you an as live look at the entire virtual 24 hours in one chunk, so that once we've had this race in the history books for a couple of months, we can look back and we can enjoy what happened once more, all over again, during the traditional European off-season. So Stuart Harrison in the Prototype AM leader is now up to 9th overall, and it looks like, I'd say it's about a 10-second gap between Harrison in 9th place and Nikolai Christodoulou in 16th. This is one of the most fascinating dynamics, I think, on the grid. We have a very big Prototype Pro field, and when we have 5 Prototype AM entries. The key here, though, is that these cars are all nominally identical. You put a pro driver in a Prototype AM car, it's going to go exactly as fast as that driver in a Prototype Pro entry. And of course, the teams that are running these cars are mostly based on the works outfits. You've got Medexit Racing running with Malachor Technology, the team running the Porsche Team Malachor effort. The number 17 Downton is the same Downton team that we've seen in Formula Virtual and that we're seeing with Nathaniel Powers all the way up into 3rd place in this race at the start. Westwood, the 69 car, it's the Peugeot Works team, but with slightly different branding. And then also Mercedes bringing the might of KT Arrow Racing for their privateer number 81 entry. The other entry is Highwind. Highwind are also involved, of course, with the defending champions, Campos Motorsport. It's a joint effort between them and Ingram Racing. So Ingram Racing also having a fantastic start to this with an effective 1-2 for their team as it stands. But Campos Highwind Racing are also running the number 49 prototype for team principal Ahmed Chima and team important people within the team, John Doe and Kimi Young. So it's a truly unique effort in the field. The only team to gone for all 3 drivers being classified as amateur, but that's just going to provide another fascinating dynamic to see how they can progress through the race. They've already stated that for them it's really going to be a case of getting to the end successfully, and to be honest with you, with the power of the Highwind team behind them, I don't have any doubt that they'll at least manage that no matter what the troubles they face. We can see the speed of their cars in GT as well, with Lewis Ellington in that GT Daytona car doing absolutely brilliantly. Exactly the same dynamic between the Pro and the AM category GT Le Mans and GT Daytona in the GT field. They are the same cars. Once you put a Pro driver in a GT Daytona car, it's indistinguishable from that of a GT Le Mans runner, and it gives the amateur drivers a real chance when we do this sort of thing to make sure that they are fully integrated into the championship and really get a chance to drive on a level playing field with everybody. So it's all about their skill level. We see on the screen there, Bojan Zrigovic has moved up to 17th overall and is now chasing down Nikolai Christodoulou, only 2.5 seconds behind, to try and take 2nd in Prototype AM. Further down, let's have a look at the GT field, and it looks like Sebastian Bergqvist off screen has now made the overtake and has got past Will Hoskins to take the lead in GT Le Mans and overall. So big move there, and it's about a 6-second gap. So the traffic for the prototypes is a very difficult thing, and it's a very important dynamic. But also, these GT runners, they're racing their own race. They'll be side by side, they'll be battling. And all that happens is that when a prototype comes in, sometimes if it comes at the wrong point in a battle, one of them will always come off a little bit worse than the other, and it might just start to spread things out a little bit. But This is the sort of thing, once again, that it will all shape out in 24 hours. We will have probably in excess of 800 laps of this circuit, and at that point, everything averages out. Everybody's going to have a good lap, everybody's going to have a bad lap, and all that's going to happen is that the best driver, the best three drivers, and the best teams with their cars will win the virtual 24 hours for 2021. Another dynamic we haven't had a chance to talk about yet, and something that may pop up during the race, is that of the full course caution. So we have, of course, 43 runners on this track. Inevitably, we're going to see some incidents. The stewards have said that they're going to take a relatively hands-off approach to this one. Nobody will be getting penalised because it all comes back to bite everybody eventually anyway. But what we might see is if there are, so generally one incident on the track will be covered by a local yellow and possibly an implementation of code 60, so that the marshals can get that incident sorted out. And then what will happen is if we have either multiple incidents at the same corner for any reason, or if we have two or more incidents at different parts of the track, the ACV have announced, the Automobile Club Virtuelle have announced that what we will have for this year is a full course yellow procedure, and it will work quite similarly to American racing. Anyone in between the leader and their class leader will be credited with the remainder of that lap so that they can get back through and stay on the same lap as their class, or stay on the same deficit as they were to their class leader, with any gaps on the same lap closing up. Then one of the big things in American endurance racing that works so well, I think, is that we have the wave round procedure. With these incidents, if we're going to end up going to full course yellow, it's going to take a little while for us to get either the track cleaned up, the track architecture back where it needs to be, and also the car recovered and the drivers to safety if necessary. So what we'll have the wave round procedure. The class leaders can anyone can pit at the end of the first lap of the safety of the full course caution, and what will happen is that anyone who is a lap or more down can elect to carry on through and then pit the next lap, because what that'll do is that'll bring them onto the same lap as the leaders, and then they pit under caution as well. And what will happen is that they will be credited with that lap back. So what it means is if you're a couple of laps down, if you've got the pace and you're a couple of laps down, 2 caution periods and you're back on the lead lap and fighting for the race victory. We don't anticipate there being a lot of caution periods with this race because we've got some of the best drivers in the world, and even the amateur drivers are proving themselves to be absolutely capable here. So we probably won't see a huge number of cautions, but it's something to look out for. And even if the race is starting to look slightly stratified, starting to stagnate in terms of the close battles on the track, there is always that thing that might lingering in the back of the mind. One person can have a major incident and then someone else can have an incident in close succession, and we know that when the track conditions get difficult, it's going to be those kind of periods as the circuit falls under darkness, and then as it gets really cold during the night, well, relatively speaking, we're looking at temperatures around 11 Celsius, so 52 Fahrenheit. We might end up seeing a couple of incidents at the same time, bringing out that full course caution. Another thing to bear in mind is that of reliability and that of just simply making mistakes. Even if there isn't a full course caution, the field is inevitably going to be thinned out in terms of the front runners just by accidents, just by mistakes, and also some of these cars will have reliability issues. It's a 24-hour race. It's one of the hardest races to win, and also this is one of the best circuits to test your car at, because you're onto the throttle for such long sustained periods of time and working in close quarters. If you're getting into the slipstream of all of these GT runners as a prototype, you're looking at really starting to overheat potentially. So you've got something which forms an absolute fascinating dynamic here at the Daytona International Speedway. As we're heading now towards the half-an-hour mark, it's still James Vasquez in the lead, but Jean Matson there making it 1.7 seconds on that lap alone, less than a second behind. And with the traffic, we said it can give, we said it can take. Nathaniel Powers now only 3.3 seconds off the race lead, having been almost at 1.11 seconds back. Carl Beckenbauer hasn't really made the inroads in comparison, but he hasn't lost any more time and has made up a little bit alongside Nathaniel Powers, while in 5th place is the sister number 21 Porsche, the DHL-backed entry, with Enrique Ruiz under severe pressure now from James Harding. Sean Bruner in that Cadillac. We haven't really had a chance to look at that Cadillac particularly well so far with everything going on, but Sean Bruner doing an excellent job. Cadillac Grey Autosport moving across, of course, from the BMW-backed entry last season. Sean Brunner, one of the drivers that's been brought across and has been driving really well alongside Victor Osberg and Elena Hopland in that sole remaining Cadillac prototype. Hugh Dwyer is next up, the number 4 car for Nackley Nissan Racing. Really another good entry in this race, looking particularly good. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Something to bear in mind as well, of course, is that at the moment we've got glorious sunshine, we've got really warm temperatures here at Daytona. As we head into the night, the track's going to cool slightly, or it's going to cool considerably as the air temperature also drops. And all that's going to happen is that the dynamic between these cars is going to shift. The car that's really performing well here is not going to have the best of balance when it gets cold, while a car at the moment that's starting to struggle with keeping the tyres alive and really keeping the car in its operating window will suddenly unlock its pace as the sun goes down and as night falls here. So whoever's quick now isn't necessarily who's going to be super quick later on. Of course, quick is quick, and the drivers will also have their say in this one. But as these cars do start to go through the cycle of the race, we will see the dynamic and the pace change a little bit. Another thing is that this is the winter. This is deepest, darkest December. And even though it doesn't get cold here at Daytona Beach, certainly for most of the Brits in the field and in the paddock thinking this is absolute paradise, we are still in the winter, and the sun does go down very early. Daytona traditionally has one of their endurance races in January, and similarly in December, it's one of the races where you have the longest time in darkness for a 24-hour race. The sunset looks like it's going to be about 6:45, so in just over 3 hours time, only about 4.5 hours into this event, it will be getting dark, and it doesn't come up again until just after 8 o'clock. So by the time you're looking, there's probably 13 to 15 hours of proper darkness, and then it all depends where you are on the track. This one of the things going through the tri-oval that's a bit of a vagary. When the sun sets, sometimes it forms an artificially dark part of the circuit, so you'll probably see the drivers with their lights on far earlier. In fact, you can see that Will Hoskins and Felipe Cesar already got their driving lights on. So one of the rules is, of course, that if you have the lights equipped with your car, you should probably run them. So we'll see that in force later on, but we also have some of the drivers that will be in packs of traffic, so it's a very fascinating dynamic as you get into the darkness. How do you use your lights to your advantage as well? In GT, let's have a look. It's Will Hoskins still second place behind Sebastian Bergqvist by 7.5 seconds now, with Felipe Cesar third overall and first in the GT Daytona category. Alexei Novosinski in third in GT Le Mans, with Lewis Ellington second in GTD, while Didier Arnaud now only 2.5 seconds behind the Brit in the Ferrari for Lapierre Formule. So first to third in both of the GT classes, really covered by not an awful lot of time at all. So we've got a move up at the front of the field. I don't know whether we could see that just on the edge of the camera there as we go through, but Nathaniel Powers is now up into second position of the virtual 24-hour race. He has just overtaken Jean Matson in a crucial move. It's going to be a long time before it comes to fruition if that's going to be the move that decides the race, put it that way. But getting that clear air, getting Nathaniel Powers up into second place was clearly getting the team that 14 car as high up the field as possible was clearly the intention of the Downton Motorsport team. Nathaniel Powers has been on an absolute roll so far this race, or so far in this stint, going up from 11th all the way up to second position, and to be honest, it looks like he has the pace, if he keeps clear of the traffic, to chase down James Vasquez and make the move to take the lead. Every time we've seen these two, it looks like they've been side by side, and they still haven't found a way to find an order yet. Frank Yang and Luca Romero, the number 58 Cadillac and the number 43 Richard Petty inspired Dodge, the Plymouth Dodge Viper, for this weekend. It's a brilliant story. We've got two American stalwart brands here, but Dodge with that number 43. As I say, it's the Richard Petty number 43 car, decked out in the livery of his famous Plymouth Superbird, and the team are so proud of how that looks. It looks absolutely resplendent in that baby blue livery. Romero looks like he might have just got the better of it, and we've seen there the perfect example of the prototypes getting involved. Looks like one of the Downton cars has just made the move to lap them, and it's just broken things up a little bit, giving Romero some breathing room that Frank Yang will now have to go and find again. Reese Cately, best of the two amateur drivers at the moment in the GT Daytona category, 1.2 seconds ahead. Jean-Claude Chazalin, this is the first time he has raced in world motorsport, in a worldwide motorsport event, and he's really holding his own. He's done very well, that Royal Phoenix Motorsport McLaren, backed by Wilson Oil's Eco Plus as well on the rear quarter panel, looking absolutely fantastic. Those colours, I think, are probably some of my favourite in virtual motorsport right now. So we've seen Nathaniel Powers on the screen. We have Jean Matson. He has now overtaken him, but Jean Matson is being pulled along by the Brit with the Downton. And in fact, here we also see James Vasquez in the lead. So with half an hour of this race gone, it's James Vasquez in the Jaguar decked out in the livery inspired by the 1988 Daytona winning Jaguar that leads this race. But with such a long time to go, let's see what happens throughout the rest of the event. We'll see you in about 90 minutes for the first hourly update of the virtual 24 hours for 2021.